The desert stretched endlessly, a sea of gold and crimson that shimmered under the relentless sun. The air was dry, heavy with heat, and every step the soldier took sank slightly into the fine, powdery sand. His boots were worn to the soles, his clothes ragged and patched from countless battles, yet he moved with a determination that refused to fade. The soldier's face was weathered and sunburned, eyes narrowed against the glare, and a faint shadow of a beard covered his jaw. He carried with him the desert horn, an artifact as old as the stories that clung to it, stories of power, war, and human ambition. He had wandered for months, following rumors told in whispers around dying campfires and quiet villages. The horn was said to hold a magic that could awaken strength beyond human limits. Some said it granted immortality. Others warned it could destroy a man from within. He had heard all the warnings, every tale of the soldier who drank too much and became a hollow shadow, but he did not care. Each day of his journey had left him weaker, hungrier, thirstier, not just for water, but for something greater. He was tired of being ordinary. He wanted to stand again, to feel the rush of life and power. The horizon wavered as he walked. Heat waves danced in the air like liquid fire, distorting the dunes into shapes that seemed almost alive. He stopped to rest beside a boulder that offered little shade. As he crouched, he pulled the desert horn from his satchel. It was heavy, carved from a bone-white material that gleamed faintly in the sun. Strange symbols spiraled along its curve, swirling in patterns that seemed to shift when he looked at them too long. His fingers traced the markings, feeling a strange pulse, almost like a heartbeat. He lifted the horn to his lips. The liquid inside was dark, almost black, with a sheen that reminded him of oil, yet it smelled of spice and metal. He hesitated for a moment. He could feel something in the air. An energy, a pull, a warning, but he ignored it. With a deep breath, he drank. The liquid was hotter than he expected, and for a moment he coughed, his throat burning. But soon the heat spread through him, not like pain, but like fire waking from a long sleep. His muscles clenched and stretched, his heart beating faster, and his vision sharpened. He felt every grain of sand beneath his boots, every movement of the wind across the dunes. Colors seemed brighter, smells stronger, and a strange rushing clarity filled his mind. In his mind's eye he saw himself on a battlefield, sword in hand, leading men who would follow him without question. He saw victories he had never achieved, battles that had never been fought, and yet they felt real, tangible. The soldier's body surged with power. Old wounds closed as if they had never been there. Bruises faded, scars pulled tight, and his chest expanded with strength he had not felt since his youth. But amidst the surge, there was a whisper, a voice soft yet undeniable. It was not a sound he heard with his ears, but a presence he felt in his bones. The voice was like silk and steel combined, warm and commanding, full of promise and threat at once. Far to the north, beyond mountains that tore the sky, there was a palace carved from white stone that gleamed even under the sun. Sapphire glass reflected the desert sands, and fountains of clear water splashed endlessly, a miracle in a barren land. Inside, the Empress sat upon her throne, regal and poised, yet her eyes carried the weight of centuries. She had ruled for longer than most could remember. Her mind sharp, her beauty untouched by time, but her heart longed for something lost. When the soldier drank from the horn, the Empress felt a tremor through her chest, like a ripple across water. She rose, her long robes swaying, and approached the window that overlooked the desert. Her gaze pierced the distance, reaching out to where the soldier now stood, drinking in the sunlight as it sparkled across his renewed form. "Return my youth, or stay with me," she murmured, her words soft, almost a plea, almost a command. There was no one in the room to hear, and yet the air around her seemed to vibrate with expectation, as if the desert itself held its breath. The soldier paused. A shiver ran down his spine. Though the heat of the desert should have kept him warm, He could not explain why, but he felt the pull of something beyond his understanding. It was as if invisible threads were drawing him northward, beyond the dunes, beyond the mountains, to a destiny he had never imagined. Night fell quickly in the desert. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky ablaze with colors of fire and blood. Stars pierced the darkness, glittering coldly, and the temperature dropped sharply. The soldier lit a small fire using flint and dry brush. He ate the last of his rations and drank sparingly from the small water skin he had carried for weeks. Even as the desert grew quiet, he could not sleep. The power in his veins kept him alert, his senses sharp. He felt the presence again, not as a whisper but as a faint pressure, guiding him, urging him forward. He rose with the first light of dawn. The dunes had shifted overnight, sculpted by the wind into new shapes, but he moved steadily, the horn secured to his side. Days passed. He survived on sparse vegetation, on the little water he could find from hidden springs, and on sheer willpower. He fought off desert creatures, scavenging hyenas and poisonous serpents, but none could touch him. The horn had made him faster, stronger, and cleverer than any natural human. Yet in his mind, the voice lingered, urging him northward, reminding him that this strength came not without purpose. Finally, he crested a dune and saw the mountains in the distance, jagged silhouettes cutting across the morning sky, and beyond them he glimpsed a sparkle that was unlike any reflection of the sun on sand. It was white stone and blue glass, far too deliberate to be a mirage. His heart quickened. He knew that the Empress awaited, though he could not see her. He felt her presence, a mixture of longing, challenge, and power. He made camp near a rocky outcrop, surveying the valley below. Streams of water wound through it, and the ruins of older civilizations lay scattered like broken toys. He realized that this journey was more than survival. It was a test of will, courage, and the essence of humanity itself. He had the strength, but did he have the wisdom? The Empress's words echoed in his mind. Return my youth, or stay with me. He wondered what she meant. Was it literal? Could she command time itself, or was this some deeper power, a temptation to bind him to her side? He could not know, and yet the thought did not frighten him. He had faced death countless times and had walked through fire, and he was still standing. He was human, flawed and fragile, yet unyielding, and now, more than ever, he understood what humanity could achieve when pushed beyond its limits: courage, ingenuity, determination, and the ability to confront the unknown. That night, under the canopy of stars, he made a decision. He would go forward. He would face whatever lay beyond the mountains, beyond the Empress, and beyond the voice that seemed to echo through his very soul. He was a soldier, yes, but he was also a human being. And humanity, he realized, never gives up, even when the odds are impossible, even when power comes at a cost. With the desert horn at his side and the fire of human will in his heart, he began his march toward destiny. He did not yet know the full power of the Empress, nor the trials that awaited him, but he was ready. The desert wind howled, carrying his footsteps toward the unknown, toward a story that would test the limits of humanity itself. And in the palace, the Empress watched the horizon, her eyes bright with hope and desire, knowing that the soldier's choice would shape not just his life, but the future of all who would follow him. The desert had become a distant memory, the soldier's boots now pressed against cooler stone, the air carrying the faint scent of water and greenery. He had crossed the jagged mountains that marked the edge of the wasteland, and the landscape was different here. Rolling hills dotted with sparse vegetation stretched before him, and rivers sparkled like silver threads under the sun. He could feel the Empress's presence growing stronger, an invisible pull that guided him as surely as any path. Despite his renewed strength from the desert horn, the journey had not been easy. His muscles ached in ways that were new, not from weakness, But from exertion, every step he took reminded him that the human body, though extraordinary, had limits. Yet each day he pushed further, discovering a resilience he had forgotten he possessed. Every time he stumbled or faced danger, he remembered the voice in his mind, guiding him. It was not just a whisper anymore. It had become a companion, offering insight and caution, urging him onward. One morning, as mist clung to the riverbanks, he noticed movement ahead. Figures emerged from the shadows of the trees, humans, but unlike any he had seen before. They wore armor that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight, lightweight yet sturdy, and carried weapons that looked both ancient and modern, a strange combination of craftsmanship and ingenuity. The soldiers moved with precision, circling him slowly. The soldier raised his hands, showing no hostility, but inside, he braced himself. He had survived deserts, battles, and the harshest landscapes, but these were people defending something he did not yet understand. "We do not wish to fight, traveler," said the one who seemed to lead them. His voice was calm but firm, carrying authority. "You are far from the sands, and far from the path of ordinary men. Who are you, and why do you carry the desert horn?" The soldiers studied them carefully. He realized immediately that these were not ordinary men. They moved with discipline, but there was a warmth in their eyes, a spark of humanity that reminded him of what he fought for long ago. "I am a soldier," he replied. "I carry the horn because it chose me. Or perhaps I chose it. I seek something beyond strength, beyond survival." The leader's eyes narrowed. "The horn is not a toy for men. Many have drunk and been broken by it. You have survived its first trials. That is rare." The soldier nodded, feeling the weight of their words. He understood that his journey was not just physical. It was a test of character, courage, and wisdom. The desert horn had given him strength, but it had also awakened something deeper, a responsibility, a duty to humanity itself. "You are heading north," the leader said, "to the Empress. Few have come this far. None have returned unchanged." The soldier felt a chill despite the warm morning. "What lies ahead?" he asked. "Trials," the leader said simply. "Not of swords or shields, but of mind, heart, and spirit. The Empress seeks not only strength, but understanding, compassion, and the capacity to choose. You may be powerful, but that power is meaningless if it is not guided by humanity." The words struck him. The desert horn had given him physical strength, yes, but could it also prepare him for moral strength? Could it teach him wisdom, restraint, and judgment? He realized that every step forward was a test, not of might alone, but of character. They walked together for hours, the soldier falling into rhythm with these guardians of the Empress. He noticed small acts that revealed their humanity. One tended to a wounded bird that had fallen from its nest. Another shared water with a weary child who wandered near the riverbank. These were people shaped by strength and compassion, living proof that humanity could survive and thrive even in harsh conditions. By afternoon, the soldier found himself standing at the edge of a valley shrouded in mist. Towering above it was the palace of the Empress, gleaming white with sapphire accents. It seemed impossibly beautiful, as if carved from dreams rather than stone. The air hummed with an energy he could feel in his bones. The Empress awaited him, and the choice she offered was no longer just a whisper. It was a command, wrapped in promise. Before they could approach, the ground trembled. From the mist, creatures emerged, large and serpentine, with scales glinting like metal. Their eyes burned with intelligence, and their movements were deliberate. These were guardians of the palace, not mindless beasts, and they recognized intruders. The soldier instinctively tightened his grip on his sword, his new strength from the horn making him confident. The first serpent lunged. The soldier moved faster than he had ever moved, striking with precision. His blade met the creature with a metallic clang, and it hissed in surprise. He fought with a rhythm born of instinct and experience, muscles and mind working together seamlessly. The desert horn had awakened more than raw strength. It had sharpened his reflexes, his perception, his ability to think under pressure. The guardians were relentless, attacking in waves, but the soldier endured. He observed patterns, predicted movements, and adjusted his attacks. His human ingenuity, his adaptability, became as vital as his physical might. One by one, the serpents fell, their bodies dissolving into harmless mist as if acknowledging his courage and skill. When the last guardian was defeated, the soldier lowered his weapon, breathing hard, sweat and dust coating his skin. He realized that strength alone had not won the fight. Human intelligence, courage, and intuition had been just as crucial. He looked at the valley below and understood the true meaning of the Empress's challenge. Power without thought, without humanity, could destroy as easily as it could protect. As he descended into the valley, the mist parted to reveal a magnificent garden surrounding the palace. Trees with silver leaves shimmered in the sunlight, and fountains of water sang as they cascaded over polished stones. The air smelled of blooming flowers and fresh earth, a stark contrast to the harsh desert he had left behind. The soldier felt a strange sense of peace, though his mind remained alert. A figure emerged from the palace gates, tall, graceful, and impossibly beautiful. The Empress herself. She wore robes of deep sapphire and gold, her hair flowing like liquid night. Her eyes met his, and in them he saw centuries of wisdom, pain, longing, and strength. She did not speak immediately. She simply watched him, studying his every move, his posture, his expression. "You have survived the desert," she said finally, her voice calm but layered with meaning. "You have faced my guardians, yet you remain whole. Few have done so." The soldier bowed slightly, though not from fear. "I am here," he said simply. "I do not know what you seek from me, but I am ready to understand." The Empress smiled faintly. "It is not only understanding I seek, but choice. You have strength, yes, but do you have the wisdom to use it rightly? Do you have the compassion to guide it, the courage to wield it without becoming a tyrant?" Her words were a challenge, but also a test. The soldier felt the truth of them. The horn had given him might, but these questions demanded more. Humanity in action, not just in intention. "You have come far," she continued, stepping closer. "And now the final trial awaits. Will you drink again from the horn, giving yourself fully to power and temptation? Or will you walk beside me, proving that strength tempered by choice is the greatest gift of all?" The soldier's mind raced. He thought of the desert, the mountains, the guardians, and the humans who had shown him compassion along the way. He thought of every wound endured, every lesson learned. And he understood that the Empress's challenge was not just about survival. It was about what it meant to be human. He lowered his eyes for a moment, then met hers with resolve. "I have the horn," he said, "but my choice is mine. I will not be a slave to power, nor a tool for desire. I will use my strength to protect, to endure, and to honor what humanity can achieve." The Empress's eyes softened, a faint light glowing in their depths. "Then you have passed, soldier," she said. "Strength, courage, and wisdom, you carry them all. But the journey does not end here. You must learn to live with your choices, to guide your power, and to embrace the responsibility that comes with it." A breeze swept through the valley, stirring the silver leaves and carrying the scent of flowers. The soldier felt the pulse of the horn, now quieter, more like a companion than a master. The Empress reached out a hand, not commanding, but inviting. "Stay," she whispered, "or return to the world with what you have learned." The choice is yours and yours alone. For the first time in his life, the soldier felt complete, not because of strength, not because of magic, but because he had faced the test and found himself worthy. He understood that humanity was more than survival, more than might. It was courage, compassion, wisdom, and the willingness to face the unknown with honor. He stepped forward, his hand reaching toward hers, ready to embrace whatever destiny awaited. And in that moment, the desert, the mountains, the guardians, and the horn, all of it, felt like a prelude to a greater story, one that celebrated the extraordinary nature of humanity itself. The Empress smiled, and together they stood in the heart of the valley, where power and wisdom met, and where the soldier's journey toward understanding, honor, and humanity truly began. The valley seemed peaceful at first, but the soldier soon realized that appearances could be deceiving. The Empress had invited him into her palace not merely as a guest, but as someone to be tested. Each hallway they walked echoed with the weight of centuries. Mosaics of battles, conquests, and the faces of those who had ruled before glimmered in the candlelight. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and sandalwood, a mixture both calming and disorienting after the harsh scents of the desert and rivers. "You have passed the first trials," the Empress said, her voice soft but commanding as they walked through the corridors. "But strength and courage alone cannot define a man. You must now face the trials of the mind, the heart, and the spirit." The soldier nodded. He felt the truth of her words. The desert horn had given him physical power, but it had not taught him wisdom or patience. He was human, with flaws and fears, and the next challenges would push those to their limits. Their first stop was the Hall of Reflections, a long, narrow chamber lined with mirrors that stretched from floor to ceiling. The light within seemed to shimmer, bending and twisting. When the soldier stepped forward, the mirrors began to ripple like water, showing not just his reflection, but memories and visions he had buried deep within himself. He saw himself as a child, trembling in fear during his first battle, a boy unsure of his own strength. He saw comrades he had failed to protect, villages he had burned unintentionally, and moments of cowardice he wished to forget. The images pressed on him like waves, but he stood firm, feeling each memory with clarity, acknowledging the pain and mistakes he had endured. "You cannot hide from yourself," the Empress said, standing quietly at the edge of the hall. "A man who cannot face his own failures will never understand true power." The soldier swallowed hard. He realized that the horn had strengthened his body, but his heart had not yet been tempered. He had survived deserts, mountains, and creatures. Yet the mirror demanded something different: honesty, courage, and acceptance of his own flaws. He lingered in the hall for what felt like hours, confronting every shadow of regret, every failure. Each vision struck like a dagger, yet he refused to turn away. When at last he stepped from the hall, his chest was heavy, but his mind was clearer. He had faced himself, and in doing so, had gained a new strength, not of muscle, but of understanding. The Empress led him next to the Garden of Choices. This was a courtyard, open to the sky, filled with paths that twisted in every direction, flanked by trees that glimmered with silver and gold leaves. Flowers of colors he had never seen bloomed along the edges, releasing scents that stirred memories and emotions. "You must choose a path," the Empress explained. "Each path will challenge you differently. One will test your compassion, another your loyalty, another your resolve. You will not know the results until you walk them. Choose wisely, for each choice will shape not only your destiny, but the destiny of those you touch." The soldier studied the paths carefully. One was bathed in light, its stones smooth and inviting. Another was shrouded in mist, the way ahead hidden and uncertain. A third was narrow, with jagged rocks and thorns that promised pain, but perhaps also truth. He chose the mist-covered path, trusting in his instincts and the lessons he had learned from the desert. The air was cool and damp, and the ground beneath his boots seemed to shift slightly with every step. Shadows moved at the edges of his vision, whispering doubts, fears, and temptations. Voices called out to him, offering power, promises of glory, and warnings of weakness. He paused, but did not falter. Each voice represented a part of humanity he could embrace or reject. Pride, fear, hope, anger. All were present, and all sought to sway him. Yet the soldier focused on what he knew: courage, wisdom, and compassion. He walked steadily, refusing to let the voices dictate his actions. Suddenly, the mist parted, revealing a small figure trapped under a fallen tree. It was a child, eyes wide with fear, limbs pinned by the weight of the wood. The soldier did not hesitate. He lifted the tree effortlessly, thanks to the horn's power, and carried the child to safety. The child clung to him, shaking, and whispered thanks. The soldier realized in that moment that compassion was as vital a strength as any weapon he had wielded. As he continued along the path, he encountered more trials. One was a village caught in flames, illusions testing his courage and decision-making. Another was a cavern filled with illusions of people he had loved and lost, each demanding his attention, each tempting him to stray from the path. In every challenge, he relied not just on the horn's power, but on his human instincts, his ability to think, feel, and act. When he emerged from the mist, he was exhausted but enlightened. He had faced fear, temptation, and moral dilemmas, and had acted with both strength and humanity. The Empress awaited him at the end of the garden, a figure serene and powerful, yet full of emotion. "You have done well," she said. "Few have survived the Hall of Reflections and the Garden of Choices with their humanity intact. You understand now that true strength is not measured by the power you wield, but by the choices you make and the lives you touch." The soldier bowed slightly, humility mixing with pride. "I have learned much," he admitted, "not from the horn alone, but from the journey, the people, and the trials themselves. I see now that power without wisdom is nothing." The Empress smiled faintly, a look both approving and calculating. "There is one final trial," she said. "The ultimate choice. You will face it alone, without the guidance of the horn, without my presence. It will test the very essence of your humanity. Are you ready?" The soldier nodded. He had faced deserts, guardians, mirrors, illusions, and moral dilemmas. What could be left that would break him? He felt a calm determination, a sense that he was prepared for whatever lay ahead. The Empress led him to a chamber at the heart of the palace. It was vast, circular, and filled with light that seemed to emanate from nowhere. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a second horn, smaller and darker than the first. The air vibrated with power. "This is the Horn of Temptation," the Empress explained. "It will offer you everything you desire, strength beyond imagination, the ability to change the world, the power to shape destiny itself. But it comes at a cost. Every choice you make while under its influence will be permanent, and every action will echo across generations. Drink, and see if your humanity survives the temptation." The soldier approached the horn cautiously. He could feel its pull, a magnetic draw that promised everything he had ever wanted: wealth, glory, influence, even immortality. Each potential outcome flickered before his mind's eye. The air seemed to thrum with possibility, and yet with danger. He closed his eyes and thought of all he had learned: the desert, the mountains, the guardians, the reflections of his failures, the child under the tree, the illusions of the past. He realized that humanity was more than survival, more than power. It was choice, compassion, courage, and wisdom combined. The soldier reached out, and for a moment his fingers brushed the horn of temptation. A surge of energy shot through him, visions of conquest and glory flashing before his eyes. But he did not drink. He stepped back, shaking his head. "I do not need this," he said firmly. "I have strength, yes, but true power comes from the choices I make, not from shortcuts or illusions. I will not let temptation define me." The chamber seemed to pulse, the horn's energy pushing against his resolve. Yet he held firm, breathing deeply, letting human will guide him rather than the seductive power of magic. The Empress watched silently, her expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, the energy subsided. The horn's glow dimmed, acknowledging his decision. The soldier had passed the ultimate test. He had resisted temptation, proven that strength without humanity was hollow, and demonstrated the courage to make the right choice even when every instinct screamed otherwise. The Empress stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have done what few could. You have shown that humanity's greatest strength is not in power or magic, but in the heart, the mind, and the choices we make. You are worthy, soldier, not just of strength, but of wisdom and respect." The soldier bowed deeply, humility and pride mingling within him. He had faced the deserts, the mountains, the guardians, and the temptations of magic, and emerged not just stronger, but wiser, more compassionate, and fully human. "You may stay," the Empress continued, "or return to the world you left behind, carrying your lessons, your strength, and your humanity. The choice is yours, as it always has been." The soldier looked at her, at the palace, at the valley, and at the journey he had undertaken. He realized that no matter where he went, the lessons he had learned would guide him. He had faced the impossible and emerged not as a weapon of power, but as a beacon of what humanity could achieve. With a deep breath, he made his decision. He would not be bound by temptation, nor by comfort, nor by the illusions of power. He would return to the world, stronger, wiser, and determined to honor the potential of human courage, compassion, and ingenuity. The Empress nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Then go," she said, "and show the world the greatness that humanity can achieve." And so the soldier, carrying the lessons of the horn, the trials, and the Empress herself, stepped out into the world once more. The sun shone brighter than ever. The wind carried the scent of possibility, and he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, humanity, his own and that of those he would touch, was capable of enduring, overcoming, and triumphing against all odds. The soldier walked away from the palace, the valley stretching out before him like a map of endless possibility. The sun was higher now, casting its golden light over the rivers and hills he had crossed. He felt the horn's energy still lingering in his veins, but not as a master over him. It was now a companion, a reminder of what he had learned and what he could achieve. Each step was lighter than the last, yet heavier with purpose. He had chosen humanity over temptation, wisdom over blind power, and courage over fear. The Empress had given him more than lessons. She had given him understanding. He realized that life was not about shortcuts, magic, or even victory. It was about choices. Each decision carried weight, and every act of compassion or courage shaped the world far beyond the individual. With this thought, he descended from the valley and returned to the lands beyond, where humans struggled, fought, and survived every day. The journey back was not easy. The mountains loomed once more, jagged and unforgiving. He remembered the deserts he had crossed, and the lessons learned there applied again: observation, patience, endurance, and cleverness. He faced natural challenges, rock slides, sudden storms, and rivers swollen with rain. But he was ready. His body was stronger, his mind sharper, and his heart steadier. He relied on every skill he had honed, every lesson the Empress had guided him through, and every trial he had endured along the way. One afternoon, as he rested beside a river, he encountered a small village under siege. Raiders, armed and ruthless, had surrounded the village, taking what they wanted and threatening lives. The soldier could have walked away, preserving his own safety, yet he remembered the final lessons of the Empress. Humanity mattered more than power alone. Strength was only meaningful when used to protect, not dominate. He drew his sword, feeling the familiar pulse of the desert horn. It did not demand action, but it lent him speed and precision. With calm determination, he approached the raiders, analyzing their positions and movements. He struck with skill, disarming one, tripping another, and using their own momentum against them. They were strong, but his experience, courage, and intelligence gave him an advantage. The villagers watched in awe as the soldier moved, like a force of nature, yet he never harmed unnecessarily. Every move was calculated to protect life while neutralizing threats. By the time the raiders fled, the village stood intact, the people unharmed, and the soldier's presence was a quiet reminder of what human determination could accomplish. "Who are you?" an elder asked, bowing in gratitude. "I am a soldier," he replied. "I have learned that strength alone is nothing. Wisdom and compassion make it worthwhile." The villagers cheered softly, not for him personally, but for the hope he represented. They had witnessed a human being using power responsibly, showing that courage and intelligence could shape destiny without destroying it. As night fell, the soldier camped beneath the stars. The constellations reminded him of the deserts he had crossed, the mountains he had climbed, and the valley where the Empress awaited him. He realized that humanity had a reach far beyond the confines of palaces or artifacts. Every act of courage, every choice guided by honor, could ripple outward, touching lives in ways invisible and profound. In the following days, he traveled across lands scarred by conflict. He encountered people in need, situations where brute force alone could solve problems but would leave devastation behind. In every case, he relied on human ingenuity, empathy, and courage. He repaired a bridge for a village stranded by floods, negotiated peace between feuding tribes, and shared his knowledge of survival and strategy. The Desert Horn's magic was still with him, yes, but it was no longer a crutch. It was a tool, guided by his mind and heart. One evening, after helping a caravan trapped by a sudden storm, he looked at the sky and wondered if the Empress was watching. Perhaps she was still testing him from afar, or perhaps the trials had ended. He did not know, nor did he seek confirmation. He understood now that true strength was not about recognition, nor glory, nor magic. It was about what one did with what one had, and how one's choices shaped the world. Weeks passed, and his reputation quietly spread. He did not seek fame or wealth, yet stories traveled faster than he could move. People spoke of a soldier who saved villages without taking what was not his, who fought with courage and mercy, and who showed that humans could rise above cruelty, greed, and despair. These tales were not about magic or invincibility. They were about the extraordinary nature of ordinary humans who made the right choice when it mattered most. One day he arrived at the edge of a great city, its walls tall and its gates guarded. It was a place of learning, commerce, and diplomacy, but also of corruption and greed. The leaders had lost touch with their people, and injustice thrived in the shadows. The soldier could have turned away, focused on survival, or simply moved on. But he remembered the final lesson of the Empress. Humanity demanded action. He entered the city quietly, observing carefully. He saw injustice, yes, but also people with potential. He spoke to scholars, merchants, and leaders, sharing insights learned from his journey. He organized defenses, trained citizens in strategy and self-protection, and encouraged leaders to act with wisdom and fairness. Slowly, the city began to change. Not overnight, and not without resistance, but through human effort guided by knowledge, courage, and moral clarity. The soldier realized that this was the true test of the Horn's gift and the Empress's lessons. It was not enough to survive deserts, mountains, or magical trials. True greatness came from using strength, wisdom, and courage to improve the lives of others. Humanity was not about dominating the world. It was about shaping it for the better. Months passed, and the soldier became a symbol, not of power, but of possibility. People began to see that one human could inspire many. Villages connected, trade improved, and disputes were settled without unnecessary bloodshed. In every act of leadership, he applied the principles he had learned: strength guided by wisdom, power tempered by compassion, courage directed by intelligence. One evening, standing atop the city walls and watching the sunset, he felt a presence beside him. It was the Empress. She had come quietly, not as a ruler demanding allegiance, but as a witness to the results of his choices. "You have done well," she said, her voice carrying warmth and respect. "You have taken the lessons of the horn and applied them in the world, not for glory, not for magic, but for humanity. You have shown that the greatest power lies in the human heart and mind." The soldier bowed, humility and pride mingling. "I have learned that strength is meaningless without purpose, and power without compassion is empty. Humanity's true potential is not in conquest, but in courage, wisdom, and the choices we make." The Empress smiled, and for the first time she seemed less a distant ruler and more a mentor, a guide who had entrusted him with the weight of responsibility. "You have returned the horn to its purpose, not as a tool of temptation, but as a symbol of human potential. Few could have done what you have done." He looked at her, understanding the depth of her words. The journey had been more than a test of strength. It had been a journey into the heart of humanity itself. Every trial, every choice, every act of courage had prepared him for this moment. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a human being, capable of extraordinary deeds. "You taught me that?" he said quietly. "Not the horn, not the battles, not the palace, but you, through the lessons and the trust you gave me." The Empress nodded, her eyes reflecting the fading light of the sun. "And you have honored that trust. Go now and continue to show the world what humans can achieve when they act with wisdom, courage, and compassion. The story does not end here. It only begins." The soldier turned back to the city, watching as people moved about their lives. He knew there would always be challenges, war, greed, injustice, but he had learned that humans were capable of overcoming anything when guided by their own strength and intelligence. He had faced deserts, guardians, mirrors, illusions, and temptation, yet he had emerged not as a conqueror, but as a leader shaped by experience, morality, and humanity. The desert horn rested quietly at his side, its energy a reminder of what he had endured and learned. He did not need it to define him. It was no longer a master, but a companion, a symbol of potential that humans could choose to embrace wisely. As night fell and stars filled the sky, the soldier felt a quiet satisfaction. He had faced impossible odds, learned the lessons of the past, and embraced the responsibility of the present. Humanity had proven itself not just in survival, but in wisdom, compassion, and courage. And in the distance, beyond the mountains and valleys, the Empress watched, content. The soldier had returned not just with strength, but with humanity intact. He would shape the world, not through domination or magic, but through example, courage, and the enduring power of human choice. The journey had begun in a desert with a soldier drinking from an ancient horn. It ended with a man standing among his own people, stronger in body, wiser in mind, and fuller in heart. He had learned that the greatest victories are not measured in battles won or power seized, but in the lives touched, the choices made, and the hope inspired. And so, with the horn at his side, the lessons of the Empress in his heart, and the world ahead, the soldier took his first step into a new dawn, a dawn defined not by magic, not by conquest, but by the extraordinary potential of humanity itself.